Hello you lovely people, and welcome back to my channel Cook with Joy. For today's video I'm sharing a kale salad recipe. I thought that I'd already shared this on my channel, but surprisingly I have not shared any sort of kale recipe. And why is this surprising? It's because if you don't know this, kale is actually weirdly one of my favorite foods. So I absolutely love this white bean and kale recipe with a homemade dressing. So let me show you the ingredients to this recipe. Okay, so for the salad part, you will obviously need some kale. The recipe calls for 10 ounces. I usually just buy this bunch because my husband and son don't really like kale salad, so I usually just make them a regular salad base. But kale, and then 1 lemon juiced, 1 tablespoon of olive oil, 1 tablespoon of maple syrup, and then a pinch of each salt and pepper, and then 1 clove of garlic. Okay, and then the bean portion is you use a can of white beans and you'll drain those, and then 1/2 of a lemon juiced, 1 tablespoon of olive oil, 1/4 a teaspoon of salt, and then it says 1 tablespoon of fresh parsley. But I have found in this recipe that the fresh parsley is maybe a little bit too pungent, a bit too much. So I just use dried parsley for this recipe. And then here is the fun part. You're going to make some homemade croutons for this salad. And I am just using this gluten-free sourdough white bread to make these. And there are measurements in the recipe which I can put down below in the description box, but honestly what I do is I just use 1 slice of bread per person, and then I just drizzle the olive oil over it. I do not measure it, and then I add some garlic powder and some Italian seasoning for these croutons. Lastly, we are going to make a homemade salad dressing for this, and as you can see by these ingredients, it's a very simple salad dressing. You might also notice that a lot of these layers have very similar ingredients like the lemons and the garlic, so all of these flavors infuse really well. But for this salad dressing, you will need 1/3 a cup of tahini, and I certainly hope I have that much left in there, 1 clove of garlic minced, 1.5 lemons juiced, it says, or 3 to 4 tablespoons, 1 to 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, and then a pinch of salt and pepper, and then it also calls for some water just to thin it out. The nice thing about this recipe is that you don't need to use your stovetop, and you only need to use your oven just to bake the bread to make the croutons, and it only takes like 10, maybe 15 minutes depending on how crunchy you want your croutons. But that is where I like to start. I like to go ahead and make the croutons first, and you might notice I'm using 2 different types of breads when I prepare this. That's because I do use the gluten-free croutons for my husband and myself, but for my daughter and my son, I use the regular sourdough bread instead of the gluten-free. So let's first get into making the croutons. Like I mentioned, super simple. You just cut up the bread into little cubes, you drizzle it with the olive oil and the spice, put the spices on, and then kind of mix it together, and then we will be baking that in the oven. I believe I do like 400 degrees, like I said, for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. Also, here is a couple little tricks for you. First of all, I like to use the heel of the bread loaf for croutons because you don't really notice it when you're eating the croutons because they're already crispy. Also, I like to use scissors to cut up my pieces of bread into cubes. Okay, while the croutons are cooking, now I can work on getting the kale cut up and all of that mixed together. I like to do that as the next step because that way the kale will wilt a little bit and the ingredients will kind of make it more palatable, because kale can be very tough. But once you get all of these ingredients and let them marinate a little bit while you're preparing the other items, it's a great result, I promise you. So let's start on this kale. Okay, I did just stir the croutons a little bit, and I decided to add a little bit more olive oil because they weren't looking quite crispy enough. So those are almost done. I'm gonna work on the beans and the dressing next, and both pretty simple. You just put all the ingredients together into a bowl and mix. So we'll drain the beans, add them to the bowl with the other ingredients, mix that up, and then mix up our salad dressing, and then we will be ready to assemble this salad. Okay, you know what time it is? It is time for me to give this salad a taste test, and I did dress it up a little bit. I added some onions, some cut up avocado, and also sprinkled it with some pumpkin seeds. That's because this is going to be a main dish for me tonight, and so I wanted to dress it up just a little bit. It probably could use some more protein, but this is what we're going with tonight. But let me give this a try with you. I definitely want to get a crouton on there. There's really too many things in this salad to have everything, so I'm doing my best. But I saw this comedian one time talk about how when you get a salad, you're really making a bunch of tiny salads on your fork, and that is the truth. But let's give this a try. Yes, that is so good. You really cannot go wrong with that super simple tahini dressing. So easy to make, but so good. But I hope you enjoyed seeing how I make this white bean and kale salad. Let me know down in the comments if you're going to give it a try. Apparently my dog wants to say goodbye as well. But as always, I will have all the ingredients in my description box below, and I will see you next time.